Hey, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Fresh Takes. This is a new podcast series that I'm doing on this channel. It's going to be kind of a sister show to Tales on the Shelf, which is the other comic book show I do with Boss Nasty, Ethan. I'm here with Connor. You've been in a couple other videos before. And I thought this was kind of an interesting idea. Essentially, the concept is, I am someone who has read comic books for a really long time, always been super interested in them since I was younger. And so I think when you're mired in a hobby or an interest, you get your biases and your opinions, and sometimes it's hard to see past it. And I thought maybe for people like me who are really interested in the hobby and interested in reading comics, it might be nice to hear from somebody who doesn't really read comics. Now, you probably read more prose and stuff like that than I do.
Yeah, I've been actively reading a lot of novels lately, so that's kind of more my speed.
And I know you've read some manga as well, but this is kind of your first Western comic book, Western graphic novel.
So I've only read one graphic novel all the way through, Berserk, and that's it. That's all the experience that I have with graphic novels.
Right, and we were just kind of chatting a little while back, and you were saying how you were kind of interested in maybe checking something out.
Yeah, I was interested just because superheroes have been the big thing for a long time now, and I was interested in the source material they get all the movies from, and I'm not a big movie watcher either, so I don't know shit about superheroes really.
Yeah, and so I chose Batman: The Long Halloween. That's the book we're going to do for this episode. This show is not going to be the same as Tales from the Shelf. On that show, we kind of tell people what book we're going to do next and kind of let people read along. That's for the more serious comic book readers. But this show is more me kind of introducing Connor to the medium and just kind of see his opinions and his takes, because I think it'll be an interesting perspective. And I chose The Long Halloween because I think it's a great intro to Batman. It was actually one of my first graphic novels, this specific book. It was either that or Spider-Man: Birth of Venom, but I think this is a great intro to Batman because a lot of people have foreknowledge of Batman. I mean, the basic stuff, so you don't really need the origin, which is why I skipped something like Year One. But this is a very early Batman, and it also shows off a lot of his villains and a lot of the important characters in the mythos. This book also was a big inspiration on the Nolan Batman trilogy and Batman with Robert Pattinson, or The Batman. And so I thought it would just be kind of a good taster. So I'm going to give the floor to you here in a second, because I just want to hear at the very top of the show, what was your experience and how do you feel about your first reading of a American Western style graphic novel?
Okay, so off the bat, I'll start off with the story at work, and I told you a little bit, but now I'm going to tell you the full story, because and this is why comic book fans get a bad rap, because we have a big Batman fan at work. You know who it is. And
yeah.
I had told him hey, I just read my first comic book, Batman. He's like, what was it? What did you read? And I was The Long Halloween. And he just goes off, and you fucking poser. Everyone fucking reads The Last Halloween. Everyone wants to talk about or The Long Halloween and Batman Year One. You guys are all fucking posers. I'm like, I don't know shit. This is just the first comic book I ever read, and he was popping the fuck off.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say on that, because we talked about the story a little bit. You told me the Cliff Notes. I just want to say to that, I think that's the reason I want to do a show like this, and I think it's interesting for comic book fans, because someone like that, they have their biases and their opinions, and you get mired in it, and you get this kind of elitism. It happens with everything. I mean, you have hobbies. I mean, everybody in hobbies gets their elitism, and I find it, obviously that's silly, and we know this person, but I just think it's so funny. I think The Long Halloween is a great intro for someone, and I think stands to the fact, because this was one of my first books of the medium, really, that I had and I really sat with. I think that this is a great taster and intro for Batman, and so I'm going to leave it back to you. What was your experience with the book? We don't have to get into the story or the art yet. Okay. We'll get there.
My experience with the book, it was short and sweet. I read it. I mean, I read the first chapter, and then I sat down and read it all in one sitting, which was nice. It was nice to have a short, really digestible story. It was nice. It was a pretty relaxing experience. It was an easy read, so I pretty much flew through it. But that was my initial.
And we can get it more into the weeds too, so we can just open it up. I don't want to like limit the conversation. I will say like so Batman: The Long Halloween. The creative team is writer Jeff Loeb and artist Tim Sale. They're kind of like just to give the information. They've done a couple other like projects together. They're kind of like a team that does stuff together. They did some other like famous books like Spider-Man Blue and Daredevil Yellow. So there's kind of a style to it as well, and it's kind of like well regarded in this kind of graphic novel format. And I think it being a complete story is also kind of like to its strength, something you can just like sit right through. It's not even just like the first volume of something. It's just like its own self-contained thing. And actually, like you said, this is short. This is actually like, I mean, compared to a lot of like single volumes of like comic stories, because I know we were considering doing Absolute Batman Volume 1. That is like a quarter of this.
What I think that's like, for me at least, like a prohibitive thing with comic books, it's I don't want to buy a book like this thin and keep up with it every month. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I will say, like, I've probably said this in recent episodes myself, I don't really collect monthlies anymore. I did when I was younger. I personally I'm also always kind of seeking a complete story. I don't really like the waiting. And I also think that the monthlies have a lot of other toxic elements to them that like for the industry, but it's also important. So like, I'm never going to like hate it. I have a huge collection of ones that I got previously. Occasionally I buy them, but for the most part, my collection is mostly graphic novels, trade paperbacks now, because I just think it's a better reading experience. Yeah. It's something you can digest fully and like get something out of, as opposed to a monthly where you sit there and wait. And if you don't go and pick it up every month, you're missing out. And I think that also leads to a lot of like maybe people dropping out of interest with it as well.
Yeah. And like, I mean, obviously it's completely different medium, but like another thing that's very different is like with a novel, if it's like a multi-parter, whatever, you like I can put that down and feel satisfied at the end just because there was so much to digest. Like this, I put it down, I thought about it for a few days, and it kind of just left. Do you know what I mean? Because it was so short. But I think the first thing I want to get into is the art in the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really liked it. I thought it was super cool. It defied my expectations of what comic books look like. You know, because you were showing me like an old Superman comic book, and that's kind of what I thought they all looked like, and I like the style of this a lot.
And I should say that was the John Byrne Man of Steel run from the 80s, post-crisis, for people wondering what Superman book. So it's a little bit older than this. The medium has definitely evolved as art has evolved, digital art and stuff like that as well. I'm not sure if this was originally penciled physically or digitally. It doesn't matter. But I agree. I really love the art in this book. I think that's another thing. Because comic books are a visual medium, I think it can be hard if you don't enjoy the art. Yeah. And I think the art in this, not only does it fit the story, because I think it fits the kind of crime noir, crime thriller that they're going for in this, but I also think that the art is very digestible. It's very much like almost animated. I've always felt about this as opposed to some other things.
What they do with lighting is really cool. Like it does have that whole noir vibe. The one thing that was like a little off-putting for me is like background characters or just like normal looking characters looked a little munted. They looked a little fucked up.
But you also have to understand, I think in a lot of comics that's the case, but you think about drawing all these pages and you're drawing all these background characters, so I think sometimes, and also because this is very stylistic, I think also kind of lends out. I think faces in general in comics are the thing that's make or break for a lot of people, and there's a lot of comics that I personally am like repulsed by because of the way faces look, and I think it's a hard thing to get down. I think it's why manga and stuff like that is a lot easier for people, because the faces are so simplistic.
Well, and I'm spoiled, right? Because like the only other graphic novel I've ever read is Berserk.
Yeah.
And art is fucking crazy.
I mean, you can't beat Berserk as far as like art, at least as far as like Japanese like manga style art. You really can't beat it.
I did appreciate. I loved. It was like a serious book, but kind of unserious at the same time. Like the Joker and how he had like 63 teeth that were all like this long. Like I thought that was fun.
Yeah. I think that's that animated quality I'm talking to, where it's like it's not clinging to realism. There is kind of different, styles of comic, and I think Western comics have a lot more stylistic difference than like Japanese like manga, in my opinion at least, and I think that's a good thing. But I do think it is a lot harder for people to get into certain things, because I actually hate the way the Joker looks in this book. I think he's like the worst looking character. He looks munted in this book.
I thought he was silly.
But that's the whole thing. Like the Joker is often depicted kind of like exaggerated, if
Yeah,
that makes sense, because he is like an exaggerative, like crazy character. And I think that is another strength of the art in this, is that the exaggeration is used to a point. You know, it doesn't take it so far that it's like takes you out of it, but the people, the characters, the forms are exaggerated enough to like get across certain things as far as like character wise, or like or like motion and stuff like that. And I think this strikes a really good balance between that. And I'll be throwing some panels from The Long Halloween on the screen as we go, just so people can get some reference.
For sure. Like the colors in the book, I love the colors.
And you should say too, you're a photographer, so you probably have a very specific eye for like contrast and light and color.
Yeah, that's my thing. And I did really appreciate that it was fully in color too, which I guess is the norm for Western comics.
Yeah.
But I really like that. So like the art was definitely one of the higher points for me.
I think that's a strength to kind of Western comics in general, is that being in color is much more common. I mean, it is more common than not. In Western comics, and I think that is a strength of them over some manga, because a lot of manga don't ever get printed in color. Like people will color the pages and you can look at them digitally, but a lot of times they don't get printed in color, or the color pages are just like the first page, or like the splash pages. So I think that's definitely something that separates it. And I'm never going to say one is better than the other, because I like both, obviously. But there are strengths and weaknesses to both, and differences in both. And I think I would even call it a strength of Western books, is the emphasis on having color in books, because I do think it adds a dynamic character that you lose sometimes. In like manga type stuff.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was like a lot of darker hues and
using shadow too.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing in Batman books in general. Well, not always, but often in Batman books, especially darker Batman books, people like to kind of lean into using shadow with him. I mean, he's got the cape, and some of my favorite Batman artists will like almost mesh the cape in with the shadows, so it's like the cape is like alive and it's like a part of the scene.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too.
And I think the depiction of Batman as a mythical character, as not just like a human, and why he's so scary to people and stuff is...
Yeah, reading through it, I kind of understood the appeal of Batman a little more. You know, I always thought Batman was a little goofy.
Well, and he has all of those characters. It's different eras, you know, and this is actually fairly modern.
Okay.
But it is coming off of... This book is technically a sequel, or like a spiritual sequel to Batman Year One, which you might have heard about.
Yeah.
And that's Batman's rebooted origin in the 80s, when they made Batman a little darker again, and that was Frank Miller, who also did The Dark Knight Returns, which is a famous Batman book. And he kind of started a newer trend of like taking Batman in darker directions. And so this is actually... It considers itself a sequel to Year One. So this is an early Batman.
Okay.
But I think this is almost better, because it gives you a better... look at the cast of characters, because in Year One, most of the villains aren't around. It's actually like just the crime lords, but the crime lords in this are introduced in Year One.
Oh, and I wanted to get into that, the villains.
Well, I just wanted to kind of give a short summary of the book for anybody. So Batman, The Long Halloween is an early days Batman story that kind of shows off, I would say, like the whole, like, or a wide array of the rogues gallery of Batman. And another thing, and we can get into this maybe, that I really find interesting about The Long Halloween, and why I think it's a great Batman book, is because Batman is really not the main character. He is kind of like a force of nature that exists in the book. But the main characters are the villains and Harvey Dent and characters like that. So we follow Batman and Gordon and Harvey Dent on their kind of crusade together to try and get rid of the crime lords in Gotham. And antics ensue from there. The crime lords start getting members of their families killed. It's putting them at odds with each other. It's putting them at odds with, obviously, the local government, who they have corrupted over the years. But Gordon and Batman and Harvey are trying to root them out. And there's a big murder mystery as to who is killing all of the members of the crime lords. And then also Batman's villains are involved, because the crime bosses start hiring Batman's villains to attack people and do crazy stuff. And the Joker is also just there, because you have to have the Joker in your Batman book. And so, let's get into the story then. You probably have some notes about it.
On the villains, I was a little confused, right?
Sure.
I don't know these villains. And so I guess if this is technically a sequel and they're not introduced, you said?
No. This would be... so there's Batman Year 1. There's also technically Batman Year 2, but this is probably Year 2, Year 3 era. The villains start to slowly kind of get introduced. And I think in the book they actually say, and this is another thing that a lot of Batman fans will talk about, is the kind of concept that Batman's existence brings the like super villains, the like crazy, like psychotic villains. Yeah. Because Batman kind of opens the door up for them. So this is like, clearly he's encountered most of them in the lore of whatever this book is, but it's still more of an introduction to just they exist and they're around. They're not like super important to the book. Well, one or two of them are, but
yeah.
But so if you have any questions, we can go through it.
Well, so I was just confused because, I mean, some of them I knew, right? Everyone knows the Joker. I knew Poison Ivy.
Catwoman, obviously.
Yeah, I did know Catwoman, but is she really a villain? But, like, Mad Hatter.
Oh, the Calendar Man?
I hated that little guy. Yeah, who is that? He's a stupid fucking villain.
So a lot of Batman's famous villains come from the kind of 50s and 60s era.
Sure.
And, you know, a lot of them are very silly because back then there was a lot more like serialized storytelling. So it was like each issue was kind of just its own little story. So they'd invent all these villains. I mean, Batman has probably over 1,000 random villain characters at this point. It's just, a couple have stuck and been brought back and also been made a little darker over the years or more interesting. But like, yeah, Mad Hatter, that's like, he's like a D-list Batman villain. He just exists.
Yeah, I didn't know who that was. The Scarecrow guy.
You don't know the Scarecrow?
No.
The Scarecrow is, he's actually one of the more popular Batman villains. His whole thing is he wears a Scarecrow mask and he has this gas.
So he's not a Scarecrow?
No, he's a guy.
Okay.
He's a crazy guy, but he made this toxin called the fear toxin, which makes you scared and makes you have visions.
And that's why Batman had his mental breakdown.
Yeah, that's why Batman has his mental breakdown, because he is induced with the fear toxin. That's why he goes and like hugs his parents' grave and stuff. Even though some would argue that Batman wanted to have that mental breakdown to get the cops to stop looking into Bruce Wayne, to think that he's just a schizophrenic, which he might still be. I mean, he dresses up like a bat and beats the shit out of people, so.
Yeah, so that was a interesting angle, I thought. And as a guy who's like not familiar with all this shit, I didn't know Batman was a schizophrenic.
Well,
I didn't know he was like.
He's not.
Like, I knew he was tortured, but I didn't know he was tortured like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the parents thing, like, I am of the opinion, and this is maybe an unpopular opinion to some Batman, what I would call Batman glazers or Batman jerkers, that, like, the thing that's interesting about Batman is that he is as crazy as all of his villains, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But, like, he does it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a miracle that he is just actually a good person.
As someone who's not a batophile, I like that. I like that he was also crazy.
Yeah, but I think that is an angle I actually really appreciate. I think the most recent movie, The Batman with Robert Pattinson, leans the most into that kind of concept with Batman, where he is himself very troubled, very crazy. And in recent Batman lore, they've even kind of sowed the seeds that maybe Batman's mom had been institutionalized previously, but of course he never, he wasn't ever old enough to really know something like that.
Yeah.
And so it leads to the idea that like maybe he is troubled in more ways than we think. It's just that his mental issues express in unfortunately being a good guy, which is lucky for him. But I think even in this book, they kind of have that angle with Harvey Dent, because at the end of the book, they kind of throw those seeds in that Harvey Dent was always crazy.
Yeah.
And he was just masking. And that he always had those problems because his mother had the history of being at Arkham and all that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In the book,
that in there?
In the book, they drop it very minorly after he becomes Two-Face.
Okay.
And after he, I believe, is captured by the police at the end. So spoilers for the book. I mean, obviously it's going to be spoilers. If you haven't read The Long Halloween, this probably isn't going to be very interesting to you. But regardless, he becomes Two-Face towards the end of the story. Yeah. And this is also kind of like stands as an origin for Two-Face as well. If you ever watched The Dark Knight.
Oh, wait, I have seen that movie. I don't remember anything about it.
Well, we should maybe rewatch that after this, because this book, The Dark Knight, follows this book very closely in a lot of ways.
Okay.
It cuts out kind of the crime boss stuff in favor of the Joker as the main villain, but Two-Face is kind of the secondary villain, and it's kind of this story without the crime boss and the murder mystery.
Does the Joker do that thing where he steals like the World War II plane?
No, he does not steal a World War II plane. He does do some crazy stuff, but not that. That is all comic book Joker. That is. Okay. I think the funniest one is when he steals the presents, because he doesn't even kill anybody. He just steals their presents and beats them up.
Yeah, he has this Grinch moment.
And he's like doing like the Grinch rhymes and stuff. I actually forgot that was in this book, and I was like, "What the fuck is the point of that?" I honestly,
I forgot about that until you said it.
What I think is that they didn't have an idea for what to do on Christmas because they had to do all the holidays, and they were like, "The Joker's like the Grinch."
Yeah, he's green.
He's kind of like a Grinch type character. Also, though, the other thing, everything with the Joker in this book is a problem for me. It's my biggest problem with this book because, like, okay, when the Joker steals the plane. And he's flying it towards the crowd of people on New Year's. And then Batman just jumps into the plane. From where?
Yeah.
From where does he get onto the plane?
And I know he's like super strong and all that, but how the fuck is he holding onto the plane?
Because he's Batman.
Okay.
I'll tell you, you have our mutual friend who loves Batman. Batman fans, that's what it is. That's the answer.
Oh,
the answer is that he's Batman. It's actually... there's a writer of Batman named Grant Morrison, and his run on Batman and his kind of like the way he uses Batman has kind of spawned in the community what people call like Bat God, which is kind of the modern Batman, which is honestly probably what you know a lot of Batman, is that he just knows everything, and he's like a Sherlock type character in a lot of more modern stuff where people write Batman that, well, he's always got it figured out. Yeah. Like the twist at the end of every like Justice League story with Batman in it is like everybody's like, oh my god, the world's gonna end, and Batman of course shows up at the end and he's like, nah, I figured it out. It actually leads to a story we just did on the last episode of Tales of the Shelf, that kind of version of Batman where he's so paranoid and so like one step ahead that he actually makes plans to like kill all the members of the Justice League if he had to, and then they get used against the Justice League, and then everybody's like, Batman, you're kind of an asshole.
Well, you know what, like, I guess in a wider pantheon of superheroes, and Batman being kind of like a guy who dresses up as a bat, it's good to give him something like, yeah, he's actually like fucking really smart.
Yeah, I mean, people will say Batman doesn't have superpowers, but he does. His superpower is that he's smart. He's the world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
He's, and I think that's fine. Like, it's fine. But I will always say Batman has superpowers. Like, he does. He's an autistic savant for knowing things. And... he's also just really strong and hot too.
Yeah.
But I think in that book, what's interesting about it is kind of what you were saying a little bit too, where it's in this wider pantheon. There is an argument to be had that he's not wrong for having like things to like take people down. That's another book to talk about, and maybe we'll do it one day. I think this kind of going back to this book a little bit, another strength of it that I think again is why it's a really good taster for Batman is there is no other superhero stuff in this.
Yeah.
And there's not even a lot of crazy superhero fanatics because most of Batman's villains are not super. A few of them are, but I don't think any of his really super villains appear in this. It's very grounded. It's very much just Batman. It doesn't mire you in a lot of continuity that you need to know other than Batman stuff, which I think a lot of times these days, companies and writers assume that people have a base knowledge of Batman.
And I mean, like, it's so prolific that, like, everyone definitely has some sort of knowledge. Like, yeah, I mean, I think everyone has to have some sort of base knowledge of superheroes like Batman. Like, everyone's gonna know the Joker. I feel like a lot of people are gonna know the Riddler and Poison Ivy and all that. So, like, I think it's safe to operate under the assumption that everyone knows a little Batman.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think that they do. I wanted to ask you about some villains. I'll probe you a little bit about what you thought. What did you think of Solomon Grundy?
Oh, that fucking creature! I didn't get it.
So Solomon Grundy is another silly Batman villain.
Yeah.
That little rhyme is just a him thing. And basically he's like a mutant creature who lives in the sewers of Gotham because he's like, I don't know, he was like homeless and then he just like grew up in the sewers and became a monster, like a hulking monster. But that's why I think it shows like Batman like goes and brings him dinner and stuff because I think it's what shows like the positive character of Batman, because another criticism that is levied at Batman by a lot of, let's just say, policing people who are left-leaning. Let's just say people who are left-leaning who have a thing against like policing and stuff, because Batman obviously works kind of with the police a lot and stuff like that, and people like to claim Batman is a fascist and he is like evil and he's just beating up like drug addicts and stuff. And I think if you read Batman, the truth of the matter is that he really does, like, I think most writers try and write Batman as a good person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he even realizes that his villains are troubled. Like, take out the stuff we're talking about how maybe he has his own issues, and just see it as like Batman is just a good guy, whatever. Like, I really do think most writers try and write there are some writers who very cynically write Batman like a total piece of shit, and honestly, it's become more prevalent in maybe more modern times. But I do think like stuff like that, like him like going and taking the dinner to Grundy and stuff like that, is just showing that like Batman does also realize that his villains have issues, and he's not like, he doesn't hate them. He just wants to like make all the like chaos and whatnot stop.
Yeah, I guess that goes along with his no killing thing too.
But Solomon Grundy is a munted creature, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of Solomon Grundy.
Yeah, I didn't like him.
He's kind of stupid, but it's silly. I had a little anecdote about Solomon Grundy. I remember. I won't use any names, and not the Michael who gave me this book.
I gotcha.
But the other one.
Gotcha.
He used to like talk about Solomon Grundy all the time, and like do his little rhyme like born on Monday, one on Tuesday, whatever, because he loved Batman. And like thinking about it and thinking about him back then, like Solomon Grundy.
He was Solomon Grundy.
He reminds me of him. Like, and I'm just like, oh, that's him. That's my Solomon Grundy.
Yeah, there's like with many things, a minority in the group of enjoyers that kind of...
So, yeah, there's always some bad apples.
Make it hard to enjoy.
Right, and I will say in comic books, I am someone... And I think I'll relate it to another hobby that I've recently gotten back into that I've always been a fan of, is like Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Is a similar thing. You know, there's a lot of really... There's nothing wrong with being a nerd or like having hobbies. Nope. I am a huge nerd. I have a bunch of hobbies and interests, but there is something about like there is the truth of like the sweaty whale-like slug type people who make it shitty for everybody else because you're trying to protect something that you feel is like very personal to you, and I get that. And I think some people just express it in a very elitist way. Well, I don't think a lot of people are conscious of that, even not in an elitist way. Sometimes just in an annoying way that turns people off from it. I think a lot of nerdy hobby type stuff, what I wish people would kind of get the critical thinking or the like thinking outside of themselves about is, if you want your hobby to survive and you want more people to be involved in it and have people to talk to about it, you have to be a little more open to like outsider perspectives. I think something like this show is why I want to do something like that, because I think you need that. I've been thinking about it a lot in terms of Magic, just to go off a little bit. I was just having a Facebook argument with some people in a Magic Gathering group about this, but like, so, you know, in Magic, there's a lot of people who, you know, they don't like some of the new stuff that they're doing. They're doing a lot of like crossovers with other properties and stuff. And there's also this format called Commander, which is what a lot of people play. Yeah. And I will say the people who play Commander, some of the people who really play it, like that's like all they play in Magic, are very smug and elitist about it, of course, because they think like they're playing the better version or they've got their own thing, whether they admit it or not. And then there's the other people who kind of rage against those things. And I just had to say to those people, though, while those people may be smug and all of those things, they're one of the people who are keeping your hobby alive.
True.
Like, you know, if Magic wasn't doing all of these crossovers and stuff like that, you know, the money probably wouldn't be rolling in. They probably wouldn't print cardboard cards anymore because it's probably losing them money in the long run to have a non-digital game. But just all of that to say, you know, a lot of people in these hobby communities, in these kind of niche, I wouldn't even say niche with a lot of these things, but like communities of interest in these nerdy type or nerd coded type things, you have to be a little more open to other people enjoying your thing, and it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of it. You can have a personal level of enjoyment. Like, just because people are annoying doesn't mean that I'm not going to read Batman the Long Halloween or something like that. Yeah. Because I do things to fulfill myself, and then I share it with other people, and I think that's important. Anyway, long tangent. We can get back to Batman villains. The next one I wanted to say is, what is your take? How did you feel about Batman and Catwoman's relationship?
Yeah, okay, so the first thing, I'll start with something that kind of pissed me off. And it didn't piss me off, but they know each other, right? Like the secret identity thing, they know.
She does not know at this time.
There's no fucking way.
Well, I think the subtext is that maybe she does.
That's kind of what I was reading into it as.
But at this time, I believe the idea is that she does not know. There's a hair on me.
Like there's no way that you have the intelligence to make all sorts of kooky listening contraptions, and
well, she probably bought that.
Being able to like infiltrate like mob bosses, compounds, and all that.
I mean, she's essentially a spy.
Yeah, there's no way you don't know, right?
Well, and I would say subtextually, that Catwoman always knew.
Yeah.
Because why would she go after Bruce Wayne otherwise anyway? And why does she care so much, right? Like, I think that's part of it, too, because, you know, this might be something that's beyond you because you haven't read or consumed as much Batman stuff. A lot of times Catwoman, or at least when she's not Catwoman, Selena Kyle, is depicted as, like, you know, she kind of bounces around at these rich parties and, like, goes out with rich guys to steal their, like, to, not that they know, but she, like, wants to steal things from them because she's a thief.
Yes.
Or, like, money and all this. So, like, on the surface, I think the Bruce Wayne thing is just like another fling type thing, but clearly she cares. Like with the Poison Ivy stuff, I mean, she saves him.
Yeah.
But I think subtextually, I would say that she always knew. That's my kind of headcanon about it, and I think a lot of people would agree that there's no way she doesn't know. Like you sleep with Bruce Wayne and you see that he's got like knife wounds and stuff like that, and that he's jacked. And you talk to Batman, and he's like, I guess he's maybe doing a voice, so instead of doing a normal voice, he's like, Catwoman. But like, and she's like you got to think like in a joking way, like he's doing the voice and she's just like rolling her eyes, like yeah, like.
Like, I guess there's also, if you want to like keep reading into it, maybe she takes on like somewhat of a different personality when she puts on her outfit.
I think that's a big theme in Batman in general.
Yeah.
For Batman, for Catwoman, for a lot of the villains and characters, even for Harvey Dent and the Killer and Two-Face and whatnot. I think this book a lot, actually, that's a lot of it, is that they are kind of playing characters.
Yeah.
And playing different people. Because I think when he is just Bruce Wayne and he's infected by Poison Ivy, that's a very human moment that they give the two of them.
Yeah.
Where they actually care, and it plays out very realistically. And I think maybe that is something that maybe writers are thinking about, where like it is kind of a different. I mean, I know with Batman, it's a well-established thing that like Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the person. Is kind of what they do. So it is two different personalities in some type of way. But I find the Batman Catwoman relationship to be interesting. I think it's cute. I think in more modern times, it's gotten a little egregious only in the way that, like, Catwoman has done some terrible, terrible things. And, like, Batman, and you know what? I get it. You do anything for that. But like, Batman has all these rules about not killing and things that you're not allowed to do. Like, Catwoman is like a terrorist. So, I mean, in different continuities, obviously things change. But like they almost got married recently, in recent years. There was going to be a Batman Catwoman marriage, but then I think for some reason comic book companies have this weird aversion to letting their popular characters get married because I think it makes it feel like they're aging. Because they do it with Spider-Man too, where like, you know, he was married to Mary Jane for a while and they undid their marriage through magic. So that Spider-Man, you know, because being married, what is he, 40?
Yeah.
Well, and with Batman, I think it's less of an argument because Batman clearly is like 30 or 40. So it's less of an argument. But yeah, they almost got married in a recent comic. And then like the comic book that came out that was supposed to be the marriage, Catwoman stands him up at the altar.
That bitch.
Which, of course, they make Catwoman do it so that everybody can hate the female character who stood.
Yeah. It couldn't be Batman.
And even though it's more of a characteristic of Batman to not show up, but I think it's silly. But I like the Catwoman-Batman relationship in this book specifically. I think it's fun. Even though, I will say, Catwoman's motivations in this book are kind of pointless. Like, she has really nothing to do in the second half of the book. I think they just kind of had an idea for Catwoman, and then they were just like, she's not really that important to all this. I mean, she saves Bruce from Poison Ivy, but after that, she kind of fades out of the book. And obviously there's more important things going on, but... Yeah,
I thought Catwoman was a fun addition. Other than that, I didn't like have many thoughts about her. She just kind of showed up and was like, Batman, I'm bad. Also, why can't he ever catch her?
Because she's fast. She's like a cat.
She always just jumps off a building. And Batman, I'm sure he's jumped off buildings before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he can like
why
glide.
Don't you just go there after?
I think sometimes it's fun to let her go. And then you find her on a rooftop later.
Yeah.
Or she comes to your house.
Like, he's got to know, right? He's like,
he's got to get home and take the Batman costume off so she can come to his house.
I'll see you later. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and she doesn't know. Like, clearly, oh yeah, she doesn't know. But I also think the Alfred stuff in this book is really good. I think you get a good look at Alfred and kind of how he is with Batman and how he covers for him. What did you think of that whole scene where Gordon and Harvey go see Alfred?
I don't know. I liked it. It was interesting to get like a little bit of Alfred in it.
I will say this isn't the best Alfred book. He's not in it very much. But
Yeah.
I actually, he's one of my favorite Batman characters.
He seemed kind of like the only guy in the book who kind of was put together.
Yeah, that's kind of Alfred's. Alfred's place in the Batman mythos a lot.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm pretty sure Alfred is still dead right now in current continuity, and it's actually upsetting for a lot of people. I agree, because I think Alfred is integral. I think Alfred is more integral than Robin or Catwoman or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because Alfred, in a lot of ways, is the Rock, right? He's Batman's Rock. Like, he is the one who, and even in a lot of Batman's, like when he's like miming out loud and like trying to figure out crimes, like Alfred always kind of slips things in there. He does it in this book when Batman doesn't want to believe.
I forgot
Harvey,
about that.
I think that's the best Alfred scene in the book. Probably is when Batman doesn't want to believe that Harvey could be the killer, and Alfred's like, I think there might be something that you're overlooking.
Yeah.
And then Batman's like, oh my God, you're right. And then what do you think? What was your take on Harvey? I mean, he's kind of the main character, really, of the book. What was your take on Harvey and maybe a little bit of Gordon, too, because obviously their families intertwine a lot.
Before we get into that, before we touch on that, 'cause
Sure,
that'll probably lead us into like the conclusion of the book that we can talk about.
Sure.
There was one more thing.
Yeah.
The Roman. I thought it was kind of cool to put Batman up against like a crime boss, but I kind of thought the Roman was a little uninteresting. Like, what did he do?
Yeah, well, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the weaknesses of this book, and one of the bigger weaknesses of this book, is that the people who are supposed to be the villains, or the like outward like villains, the antagonistic force against our main characters. Our main characters, I would say, are Batman, Gordon, and Harvey.
Yeah.
Are really the Roman and the crime families in general. They don't do much to the police or to Batman or to anybody we're really following. They really just fight each other. But I do think it's also to be a backdrop for Harvey's story. I think that's really what it's supposed to service that. But they're also somewhat they're pre-established Batman characters. So that's another thing you would kind of be missing in this, is that like in year one, he interacts with the crime families a lot, and throughout Batman's mythos, when he's not fighting crazy like clowns and like Mad Hatters, he is often fighting crime lords and their organizations, because that's kind of where his roots as a crime fighter come from. And like from year one, that's where the roots are, because there are no supervillains in year one. It's all crime families.
Okay.
So these are characters who are somewhat pre-established. I think this is more the death of the crime family. I think what this book is, and why, again, I think it's a good taster for Batman. Oh, hi, buddy. We have a cat. Cat invasion. Cat man.
Can you be chill?
Yeah, he'll be fine.
All right.
But yeah, I think what's cool about this book, and another reason I think it's a good intro to all those things, is because it is kind of, I see it as the death of the crime families of Gotham and the old school crime, and moving into the psychotic super crime.
Okay, so this is like them ushering in the new era.
The era of the supervillains and of the Batman.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's the symbolism of it, or the like overarching theme as far as like it's concerned to Batman's mythos at large.
Yeah.
Beyond the story.
Okay, so I guess back to Harvey. Obviously it's a whodunit story, and the whole time I'm like, yeah, it's Harvey. It's Harvey. Duh, it's Harvey. Because he's downstairs filing the serial numbers off that gun.
Right.
And so I didn't necessarily think it was going to be like a whodunit for the audience, more so just for the characters. So in my mind, it's like, okay, how is Batman going to figure out that it was Harvey? And then at the end, which I'm not going to lie, maybe I'm stupid, confused me a little bit.
Well, you want my take on the ending?
Sure.
Because I can see why it would be confusing. I think the ending is the worst part of this book.
Okay.
I think it's an ass pull.
Yeah.
Really. And I should have looked into it. I don't believe that The Long Halloween came out in single issues. I think it was always just this one graphic novel.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I will say, let's just talk about it as a full story, because we read it as a full story.
Yeah.
My take on the ending has always been that it's clearly Harvey. It makes the most sense for it to be Harvey. But I think that they thought it was too obvious that it was Harvey. And I think this is something that I'm not trying to be like Mr. like super writer or whatever. Yeah. But I think a lot of writers fall into the trap where you're trying to make your mystery mysterious. Whereas I don't think a crime thriller mystery like this always being obvious isn't a bad thing. Being obvious doesn't need to be a negative.
No, not at all.
I think it would have made the story more consistent if it was just Harvey. I think adding in the son the Roman's son, the like nerdy one. I honestly forget his name. I should have written it down. Who is the actual holiday killer?
Yeah.
Is a little silly.
Yeah, it's like,
and then the stuff with his wife at the end.
Off the top of my head, like Dune. So there's like a traitor, and the reader always knows who the traitor is. It's like clearly broadcast to them, and what I feel like what's interesting about that book is seeing how the characters discover who the traitor is, seeing like the traitor's impacts, and that's kind of what I assumed this would be, where, okay, how is Batman going to figure this out? And then it's revealed that, it's the Roman's son.
Sorry.
He is distracting.
Sorry, I had to remove him.
He started being bad
from the space. But if he could have just sat, we could have had a cat right here. I mean, sure, there's a cool thumbnail. But yeah, I think even if they took the part out with the Roman's son, they could have left the part with Harvey's wife, because I think that part hits a little harder.
Well, and so that's what I really hated about the ending. Like, sure, you want a rug pull and be like, okay,
but like the double
it's
rug
the Roman
pull.
son. Yeah, and then the double rug pull, that I was like, who the fuck did it then?
Well, it also kind of sullies Batman as a character, I think. This is my other problem with it, is that it sullies his intelligence.
Yeah.
Because if there was 3 killers, shouldn't Batman have figured that out? And,
yeah.
And I will say, I do almost enjoy the ambiguity that Glinda, I think is her name, his wife.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the ambiguity of her, because theoretically maybe Batman could have like overlooked the fact that she also involved herself. But I think when you have the 3 parties, it kind of all falls apart, because it's like, if Batman is such a good detective, and you also have Commissioner Gordon, who's, I guess, supposed to be a decent detective, like, you don't think they would have figured out that it was multiple people? Well, I guess they know it's Harvey and the son, but regardless, I think it sullies the kind of Batman being this super intelligent character. And like you were saying about Dune, in the same way with like the writing stuff, I don't think it's a problem for the reader to know the answer.
Yeah,
early.
it feel like they really wanted to be like, gotcha.
Yeah. I think it ruins the emotional impact a lot of the Harvey fall as well. Because if Harvey was not responsible for a majority of the murders, then his fall into Two-Face kind of just makes him seem like a doofus.
Yeah. And like with his wife, I didn't necessarily get the impression that she was killing people, but it mostly felt like she knew about Harvey and was complicit in it.
Well, I think that is what they're saying, but I can't. And now I'm starting to forget. I should have written better notes.
Yeah.
But I do think it kind of either says or implies that she did one of the murders.
Okay.
Or at the very least, she does cover for Harvey.
Yeah.
And cover some of the evidence for him, and that she knew the whole time. Which I think that's fine. But yeah, I will say, I think the ending is the weakest part of this. It kind of ruins a lot of the other things that happen in the book and sullies it a little bit for me. I still love this book. And I don't think the ending is egregious by any means. I've read a lot of worse endings in comic books and books in general. But I do think it kind of falls apart towards the end. I think in general the book kind of falls apart towards the end. I think it has a very strong start, and it has a decently engaging middle with a lot of supervillain antics. And then towards the end it seems to fall apart a little bit. I don't know if that was your read of it as well. But
yeah, it was. They kind of had trouble, it feels like, tying it all up nicely. I didn't find the ending very satisfying at all. It kind of left me like, what the fuck? What happened? It left me confused personally, and I might just kind of be stupid.
Sorry, I'm in producer mode too.
Oh, that's okay.
It's fine. This is a guerrilla style podcast.
Yeah, we are guerrilla fighters.
We are
in the trenches.
We work for Gorilla Grodd. Do you know who that is?
No.
That's a Flash villain. He's a gorilla.
That sucks.
Well, he's a gorilla, you see, but he's from a secret society of intelligent gorillas.
That sucks.
Yeah, he does kind of suck. Gorilla Grodd does kind of suck. Now, don't tell any Flash fans that. If that guy that you were talking about is also a Flash fan, don't tell him that.
I don't think I've ever met a Flash fan.
Really?
No.
I feel like there's a lot of more Flash fans now than there used to be because of the TV show.
I didn't even know there was a TV show.
Yeah, there was a TV show. I watched it for a while. I'm a Flash fan. I like the Flash, but I don't like him as much as some people. What I like about Flash fans is that, so, you know, like Batman has a lot of like ancillary characters like Robins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They have like a Bat family. Superman has like Supergirl and the dog, and like he has like a super family.
Crypto.
So all these like popular characters have their like kind of family of other characters who spawn from them, and from years and years of comics, so you expect them to have these other characters. But the Flash one I think is so funny because the Flash characters all have the same power.
They're all fast. Okay.
But Flash fans love it when anybody gets fast powers. They're like, everybody should be fast. This is great. And I think that's what the beauty of being a Flash fan is you're just in it for the love of characters who can run.
You know
fast.
what pisses me off about the Flash?
Sure. Is that he's actually the most powerful, and then like
No. It's a very superficial complaint. Why the fuck does he put on his little costume?
well, so when he's not running, people don't know who he is.
You're running so fucking fast. No one's
What
gonna
about
see
when
it.
he stops running?
Just keep running a little bit.
What if he needs to do a photo op in front of the Flash Museum?
I don't know. He doesn't need to do that.
Well, he does, because there's a Flash Museum. He's very well beloved in his city of Star City.
Star City.
That's the city. So here's a good one I can tell a new comic book fan. In DC Comics, the cities are fake, but the real cities exist. Now in Marvel, it's all real cities. Like all the Marvel characters are from like New York, and some of them live on the West Coast because they're assholes. All the asshole characters live on the West Coast, just so you know.
That makes sense.
All the characters who don't sell books live on the West Coast.
Okay.
And everybody else lives in New York. And then in DC, all the characters have like their own city. So like Batman lives in Gotham.
Oh yeah. So about Gotham, the crime families were talking about how they were doing business in New York and Boston, and so in my brain, I'm like trying to pinpoint Boston on a map or Gotham on a map because this is some sort of like.
It's a Midwest city.
It is a Midwest city.
Well, so I've heard many theories, and it depends on the writer. It depends on the medium. I know in Nolan's Batman, like the Dark Knight movies, he kind of envisions it, I think, as New York, or like a similar Northeast city. But a lot of people, at least that I think, from what I've heard, a lot of people believe it's like Chicago-ish. Like Gotham is like a Midwest city.
Oh yeah, and then there's water.
Like a former, because Gotham is a very rundown city, and I think the idea is that it's like it's a Detroit style, like used to be like a haven of industry. Like,
Gary.
No, not like Gary. But you know what I'm getting at, like a Midwest city that used to have a booming economy, and then because of changes and things, it's deteriorated. And like Bruce's parents became rich in that time, and then Bruce is there now where it's like deteriorating.
Okay.
So Gotham is probably a Midwest city, as opposed to Superman lives in Metropolis, which Metropolis is basically New York.
Okay.
Like it's the closest to New York, and it's probably like a Northeast, East Coast city.
I don't like that they're like the real life cities still exist.
I agree with you.
In the place with the fake cities.
I've always had a problem with it because obviously all of the fake cities are real cities, are supposed to be real cities. They're just renamed things. But also in some continuities, Metropolis and Gotham are across the river from each other, so they also have kind of a twin cities.
Oh, so it's like Trenton.
No, it is not like that. I would say it's more like what is the Twin Cities? That's a thing in one Midwest. I don't know which cities it is.
Oh, you're talking about like Kansas City.
Maybe.
Well, there's Kansas City, Missouri. And
there's two cities that are like across one of the Great Lakes from each other.
Oh, it's Memphis and not Great Lakes.
Memphis?
Well, I might be having a moment.
You're having a moment.
Well,
Let's
you know
stop
when
talking
you-
about
when you
geography.
cross-
We don't have a map in front of us. Let's stop talking about geography. But let's talk back about comic book geography.
I have a map in front
Well,
of me.
anyway, we talked about it. So, and then the Flash is from Star City. The Green Lantern is from Coast City. And I think Wonder Woman also used to have her own like city that she hangs out in, but I don't know. And then Nightwing, who is the first Robin, but then he becomes his own superhero, Nightwing.
Okay.
When he goes off on his own, he goes to Bloodhaven, which I've always thought is Boston, because it's like a New England city, like port city, I think. But anyway, that's beside the point. I guess we can get back into the book a little bit. I mean, we've talked a lot about it. Is there any other things in your notes that you wanted to go over, like general thoughts? I know you wrote a lot of notes. I did
write. I did hit most.
I meant to, and I didn't.
I did hit most of my points. Let's see here.
I've unfortunately read this book multiple times.
Oh yeah,
throughout my
here's
life.
one thing. So
Not unfortunately.
Bruce Wayne goes to jail.
Yeah.
Did no one fucking notice that Batman was like not in town for like a couple weeks?
Does he go to jail or does he just go to trial?
No, he goes to jail.
Oh, he
They
does go to
arrest
jail.
his ass.
Well, I mean, maybe Batman was hurt.
Okay.
I mean, listen, when it comes down to it, that is one of the things about Batman and a lot of superheroes.
You do have to like somewhat suspend your disbelief.
You do. You do have to suspend your disbelief with the people knowing. I do think it's funny. The third Robin, Tim Drake, who was...
three.
There's more than that. We can talk. Maybe we can have a Robin episode. But the third Robin, Tim Drake, who was introduced in the 90s, the way that he's introduced partially is that he finds out who Bruce Wayne is from like looking at pictures of Batman's. Oh, actually, I'm mixing this up with another character. He does find out who Batman is and finds out that it's Bruce Wayne through some way, but I believe actually it's Lex Luthor. There's a comic where somebody, and I believe it's Lex Luthor, finds out who Batman is, and his reasoning is he's like, well, I looked at your chin and I looked at Bruce Wayne's chin, and then I matched them up and they're the same. So you're Batman. And also, you're one of the only people rich enough in the country who also lives in Gotham who could possibly be Batman.
Yeah, who could possibly afford all these silly trinkets?
Which I think is the appeal of Absolute Batman, which maybe you and I will talk about in the future.
Yeah.
Is that he's not rich. Because I think him being the richest man in Gotham, or one of the richest men in Gotham, sometimes it's one or the other. But either way, him being one of the richest people in Gotham and in the country is like, he's obviously Batman.
Yeah.
There is, and you know what? I like to believe, my headcanon is that people know and they just don't care. Because he's like not an asshole.
There's like suspending your disbelief, and then there's like, it's right in fucking front of you who's Batman is.
Now, I will say,
how have you not figured it out?
There are some characters, like we were talking about Catwoman.
Yeah.
And I also think another character who I feel like a lot of people would agree with me, this is kind of headcanon I've always had, is that Gordon knows who Batman is.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't care. And I think there's other stories where it's more obvious that Gordon knows, but I think like Commissioner Gordon is like, I've always felt like, at least intellectually, maybe not physically, is equal to Batman.
Yeah.
And that's why they play off each other so well. But he knows who Batman is, and he respects that he just doesn't tell him.
Okay.
Because there are stories, I don't know if it really necessarily happens in here. It does kind of when they have the fight about Harvey, because, he says to him, how long have you known?
Yeah.
And didn't tell me. Because Gordon and Batman's relationship often is that they're friends. And there's like a trust between them. And Gordon makes it very clear to Batman, often in a lot of stories, if you're not truthful with me, then this is over.
Okay.
Like, because he respects Batman and how smart he is and how he helps, but only if he's going to be honest with him. Like, Gordon never asks Batman to reveal his identity or be honest with other people, just with him, because he's the commissioner as well.
Yeah, and obviously, like, he's allowing Batman a certain leeway with him being a vigilante. So
something you also don't get with Gordon in this book, it's more year one and some other like ancillary stuff leading up to it, is that so Gordon actually starts as a police captain.
Okay.
And he's not the commissioner. And he's not necessarily working with Batman yet. He actually doesn't really like Batman at first, like a lot of cops. But Gordon is one of the good cops. He's one of the non-corrupt cops. It's like Gordon and one or two other like major Batman cops, I think like Harvey Bullock and a couple other characters who I don't think are in this book. But Gordon wins the commissionership for being a good cop.
Yeah.
But he is still always beset by the corruption below him.
Yeah.
So he has to also kind of protect Batman in that way.
Okay.
So I think that's another Gordon dynamic that maybe you don't see in here that's maybe like good information to have. Gordon is a character I really like a lot. Sometimes I like him more than Batman.
I would have liked to get a little deeper into the characters. Here's like kind of my main complaint with this as like a standalone story is that there are so many characters and villains and all that. And I get that it's expected that you know some of them, but I feel like there's so many characters.
It's too much.
It's a little too much.
It muddies the water.
It takes away from the development of certain characters. Like, if we would have gotten rid of, like, the Mad Hatter and Scarecrow and, like, just gave Harvey Dent one more chapter, like, I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, I think it's a weakness of comics in general. Especially comics of mired characters such as like Batman and Spider-Man and Superman, because it is expected that you have this knowledge, and then if you don't have the knowledge, they expect that you're going to read a bunch of other stuff and kind of pick it up.
Yeah.
Because that is the thing. You have to kind of get into it. And obviously through the show, I imagine you'll start to understand a little bit more about these things. But I do think it is a weakness of almost every comic I've ever read, is that there are just going, and I think it's where I got to at a point because I love comic books and I don't know a lot of this stuff. Maybe I knew more of it when I was younger too, because I took some time where I didn't read comics for a few years.
Well, there's so much information, and part of like
it's prohibitive. It is 100%
one of the reasons I kind of wanted to start doing this is because you were just explaining things to me, and I'm like, this is so fucking much.
Is it more or less complicated than Metal Gear?
Less.
Well,
I still don't
most things
understand
are.
Metal Gear. I still don't understand Metal Gear.
One day. Actually, I don't understand Metal Gear. I love Metal Gear and I don't understand.
One day we're going to sit down and you're going to re-explain Metal Gear to me for the third time and I'm going to get it.
Fourth, probably fifth.
We're going to fucking sit at this table until I know
that's a good episode.
What Metal Gear is.
But well, in fairness, it kind of loops to my point though, is that I think there are some things and some things you can get into and be interested in. And this is very broad, but I think it does apply to a lot of things where you almost, it's like suspending your disbelief. It's like you get to a point where you're just going to accept that you don't know it all. It's actually, this is a weird tangent, but I've been like really looking to like learning languages.
Yeah.
And I've been looking into like immersion method of learning where you just kind of like listen to people speak it until you understand it, which I find very interesting and it makes a lot more sense for my brain. But I think it's interesting because it's one of those things where what all people will tell you about like an immersion method is, it's going to be a very long time where you just don't understand anything. Yeah. And then you know a couple words and you can maybe pick out a few things. Then you can have conversations. And then you can, write and all those things. And I think it's the same thing with almost anything, but comic books, it's a great example for that, where it's like you're just going to not know certain things. And obviously for you, like a show like this where I get to talk at you and explain your questions is helpful. Not everybody will have that, but I hope it'll be for other people too. And I think, again, why this is interesting on both sides. It's interesting for people who are like you and don't have a lot of this background knowledge. And I think it's also interesting for people who do have the background knowledge, because sometimes you do need to see somebody who doesn't have the biases of your perspective. Yeah. That's important in everything, by the way. That doesn't just apply to comic books. Some people should learn that skill.
Mm-hmm. Overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a fun time.
What would you rate it out of 10? We do that on my channel a lot.
Okay, out of 10? 7.
We gotta put I wish you could use like the Jeopardy music, but I think that's copyrighted.
I'd give it a 7.
7?
Because
that's solid.
Listen, I wasn't like.
By the way, I would like to say if we do ratings in the future, I say this all the time because places like IGN. This is a real tangent. Places like IGN have tainted the waters on ratings. A 5 out of 10 is mid. Like that's not bad.
No. For me, we're on the same fucking page, dude. We're on the same page. Yeah. I'm not doing any of that fucking 0.5, 0.3 bullshit. I'm giving you a solid number.
I do the points sometimes, but I'm saying like I don't think like a 5 means something's bad.
No. 7, I did like it. I had a really good time reading it. I wanted a little more from it, but overall, like it was fun. I enjoyed it.
And so you want to keep doing this?
Sure.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have a little more conversation, but we'll wrap up the episode here in a little bit. I will say, I think we're gonna do a Marvel book next time.
Yeah, because we should do Spider-Man.
My plan for you so far is we did Batman, so that's DC, and we're gonna go to Marvel, and then we're gonna do an indie book or like a non-big 2 superhero book, because I think that's a good perspective to have too. And then we're gonna loop back around and probably do. I'm thinking like Superman or Justice League.
Okay. Here's my 2 cents. I don't know if you know this about me.
What are you interested in?
I don't know if you know this about me. For every year until I was about 10 years old, I had a Spider-Man birthday party. It was always Spider-Man.
I love Spider-Man.
I've never read a Spider-Man comic. I've watched the 3 Spider-Man movies.
The original 3.
Yeah.
I've watched the new ones.
I was obsessed with those when I was a child.
You've not seen the Tom Holland ones?
I saw the
first one.
Homecoming. I saw the first one. I might have seen the second one. There's 3, right?
Yeah, the one where he fights Mysterio. You saw that one? No. Anyway, but you. Okay. So you do like Spider-Man?
I was at one point. I'm not gonna call myself a huge Spider-Man fan because I watched 3 movies. But as a child, I fucking loved Spider-Man. Oh, I played the games too. Yeah. I really liked the games.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested in seeing how Spider-Man is different in print than he is depicted on screen.
That's good. That gives me a lot of decisions on what to do first, because I actually recently for Christmas I got a Spider-Man omnibus of some really like classic, well, they're 90s Spider-Man stories, but they're what I would consider very classic, well, decently written Spider-Man stories. And then I have some other ones kind of smattered in there. I'm I'm interested to what I'm going to pick for you because there's a lot of avenues you can go with Spider-Man. But we'll deliberate. We'll talk about it. I guess you guys will see next month what we pick. But yeah, I mean, I've closing thoughts like anything else you wanted to talk about in relation to not just maybe this book, but comics in general and superhero bullshit.
I'm excited to read more comics. That's what I'll say. I did have fun. Sure. I did like it more than I thought I would, and I'm interested to see like kind of what else is out there. I know the big feud. Is it a feud? DC versus Marvel.
I don't think
Xbox versus PS4.
Well, I think it's like that. I don't think it's a big feud.
Okay.
I think at times maybe it had been.
I feel like people pick sides. I feel like I need to pick a side.
No.
I need to have an opinion.
You need to have an opinion. Well, maybe wait until we do a couple more books to have an opinion. I will say, I'll give you mine. I think DC puts out and writes better books.
Okay.
But I think DC is more about creators, whereas Marvel is more about money. That's just the truth of the matter. That's just the truth of the matter. I mean, here's an example. DC Comics right now, the Absolute Universe, which is where Absolute Batman comes from, it's kind of their like rebooted universe. If you look at the top charting comic books, the first 10 are all DC Comics books, and they're all Absolute. So they're all new, like reinventions of old characters. So it's almost like when you give creators the freedom to do something interesting. Well, not always, but a lot of times when you give competent creators who have a good idea the freedom, it's almost like you sell books.
Yeah.
Whereas Marvel can't even get their flagship character, Spider-Man, to sell books because they're so concerned with maybe people might think that he's like 35.
That's not good.
Yeah, so it's something we can talk about more in like future episodes, but I will say from my perspective, I'm not a fanboy of either, and obviously my favorite superhero is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I hate modern Spider-Man. Well, not hate. I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man was pretty good. The new Ultimate Spider-Man and the old Ultimate Spider-Man. But anyway, like Marvel in general, I think it's just differences in company culture. It's differences in who owns your company. It's differences in the fact that the MCU is so popular that the comics almost have to be downstream of it instead of the other way around. Whereas DC comic books have kept themselves very separate, I feel, in a way, from the licensed properties around them, where the comics have stayed kind of more true to themselves. And I feel like DC is a better place for creators, for people to go and like write interesting stuff. DC also, so something like this, DC is bigger on graphic novels. Marvel's not as good with like straight up graphic novels. I think that's a strength of DC because a lot of times DC will take like, you know, people like Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale and these creators or creative teams and just be like, write a book and we'll publish it. Okay. And I like that.
I like that too.
And DC also, I don't know if it's still called this, but they used to have a print called Elseworlds. Mm-hmm. And basically what Elseworlds was they would give a creator, a writer, and an artist or a team, whatever, free reign to do like a one-shot little graphic novel that takes place in like another universe and like take a character and do something weird with it. And they're called Elseworlds. And I think that is another just example of like doing things so people can branch out and do interesting stuff. And I think a lot of the seminal books we're going to do in the future, if I'm thinking of them off the top of my head, there are Marvel books in there.
Okay.
But a lot of them are DC books.
Okay.
I think eventually I also want to get into some weirder stuff too, and a lot of that is probably DC too. So another kind of just on this tangent while we're talking about it, and while the computer is still running producer mode, there's a thing in comics, I think I maybe talked to you about this off camera one time, called like the British invasion of comics. And it comes in the 80s after Frank Miller, who did Year One, we were talking about earlier, and like Dark Knight Returns. A lot of these people came to DC, Grant Morrison. Alan Moore had already been around, but Grant Morrison and a few other people, and they brought kind of like new life to like the writing over there. And a lot of those books were at DC. So there's just a lot of history, I think, of giving creators the space to do more interesting stuff. And I'm kind of just looping around and saying the same thing now. So
I will say on Alan Moore real quick, I thought he was like a novelist.
Really?
I have one of his books on my shelf, Jerusalem.
Okay.
And it's just like a fucking huge novel. I haven't finished it.
Do you know that stupid movie I like, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an Alan Moore comic book. That's an adaptation of an Alan Moore comic book.
Oh.
And he also did V for Vendetta.
Well, see, I knew that. And for my book club, we're reading novels, and I suggested V for Vendetta because like a lot of times we like to read a book that also has a movie. And the one guy in the book club was, I didn't know we were doing graphic novels. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and he also
Alan Moore writes comic books.
He also did Watchmen. That's obviously the other
Yeah.
super famous one, and he's done a lot of other stuff. Alan Moore is also like a weird curmudgeon wizard. He hates like every adaptation of his work, which I mean, in some way, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, he is like a seminal, very important writer, and we'll definitely do some Alan Moore stuff at some point. We'll probably do like Watchmen or something at some point. Even though we might do that on Tales from the Shelf too, so we'll see. Maybe we'll do a crossover.
I used to own Watchmen. It was given to me by my neighbor. I read a few pages of it, and then I spilled water on it and ruined it. Yeah. And so,
I mean, you can see this book. I've had it for years. It's got like sticker, and I got this from somebody else when I was in, I think, elementary school or middle school. So it's a little beat up. I actually wanted to get a new copy for this episode, but I didn't get it in time.
It's loved.
Yeah.
It's a relic.
I mean, and like I always say about books, I know I talked to you about this off camera the other day, but I mean, I think like I buy books and comic books because I want to read them.
Yeah.
I try and keep them nice enough that they're like readable and nice, but like if you read a book a couple times, it's going to start to curl and stuff like that. I dog ear pages because I'm a crazy person.
Oops.
That's the end of the episode, folks. Thank you so much. We'll be back next month with another episode of Fresh Takes. Connor, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed. That was a terrible handshake. Sorry. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like.
Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe.
Subscribe if you enjoyed it. And we'll be back with more. I'm going to clean up now.